This is Danielle Ate the Sandwich, and you are listening to the Album of the Week podcast.
Welcome to the Album of the Week podcast. My name is Vic, and today we have our second installment of interviews with musicians. Today I have a very special privilege of interviewing a very talented, entertaining, and hardworking musician all the way from Colorado, Danielle Ate the Sandwich. How you doing, Danielle?
Hello, I'm doing great. It's great to be on your podcast, Vic.
Thank you. Well, you've been a busy woman, and it's good to hear that you've been hard at work on, spreading good music to the people of the United States and abroad. Now, I'm going to ask you some general questions about touring here and, music life. And one of the things I'm always interested in hearing from musicians is, what are your major influences in the music writing process? What kind of musicians do you look up to when you're trying to be inspired, or musicians in the past that have really inspired you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I listen to and am inspired by a lot of different artists. Lyrically, I really like Paul Simon's work, and I always say Ben Gibbard, the writer for the band Death Cab for Cutie. And I grew up, and when I was really starting to get gaining my legs in performance, I was listening to a lot of Regina Spektor. So I think she influenced my style a lot. And then aside from lyrically, I also take a lot of vocal inspiration from like 50s jazz singers, and I listen to a lot of pop music. And I never quite know how to explain how those people, like current pop music, inspires my songwriting. But I really like to let it rip vocally to pop music. And then I think that kind of trains me in an interesting way to be able to use my voice in a lot of newer ways that I wouldn't have always thought of only listening to folk music. Know what I mean?
Absolutely. One of the things that initially caught my attention from your original songs were very interesting choices of lyrics that you have. I think you have a very talented way you have a very interesting way of putting together these lyrics that stick out and they stick into your brain. And, I've always admired that. And kind of the reason why I started listening to your music. Some of those musicians you mentioned, or actually, it makes sense now. Honestly, you have a great talent in your lyrical writing. I enjoy most of your stuff, and it's interesting to see that some of these classic musicians, these 50s musicians, inspire your vocals as well. One of the other questions I'm always interested in, do you get nervous before you get on stage?
I don't anymore, but I definitely started out being very nervous. I was a shy kid and a wallflower. And until I was like in my early 20s, I wasn't performing at all because I was too scared. And then when I finally started to do it, I played with a band, so there was a little less pressure on just me to be up there alone and carrying the whole performance. And then eventually my band that I was playing with, we all kind of went different ways. We were in college just having fun. So I made the choice to become a solo performer. And it was even though I had performance experience with them, I really had to relearn how to be the only person on stage carrying the whole thing. I think it's scarier than it seems. When you're up there, it feels like everybody's watching you and every moment counts, and every moment you're not saying or doing something, the audience is growing restless and will soon start throwing vegetables. And I think in the audience you're watching just going, oh, that person's just getting situated. So like when you're on stage, it's a lot more scary and important to be doing a good job in all the ways, performing the song, but interacting with the crowd and making sure you seem comfortable and prepared. I don't get scared anymore. I don't get nervous anymore unless it's like a different sort of situation. Like if I'm on like a television morning show, or like if my boyfriend's parents would be in the audience or something like that. But usually nowadays it just feels like getting up to go to work. And I credit that to having performed hundreds and hundreds of times. Like it wasn't easy the first probably 100 times. And then the 101th time, I was finally like, okay, that there were moments where I forgot about how nervous I was. So I think performance is similar to practicing learning a song. You practice it, and you practice it, and practice it. And the first few times it sucks. And maybe eventually you can play it without even thinking about it. You know it by heart, you know it back and forth, you know it enough to try new things, whether stylistically with your playing or with your singing voice. And I think performance is the same. You got to practice it. You got to do it over and over again. You got to see what works. You got to see where your talents are. And I don't think it's for everybody, but if there's like a burning fire in you that keeps saying, I want to get up and do this more, I want to try this again, I say keep fighting through the nerves and fighting through the scariness. But I also think there are like famous, successful pop singers who still say they get nerves. Like I think Adele, have you heard this? Like Adele says she still gets nervous on stage. So it's still just something we all go through. It's a very humanizing experience.
Yeah, I haven't heard that about Adele, but it's really interesting to find out that such a powerful singer and such a well-loved musician would still get nervous a little bit. But it makes sense that the more you practice something, the more you'll be comfortable in just doing it. It's interesting that you see it as what I do. So you don't have to feel too nervous about it. And I think especially with your fan base, whenever I look into the comments of your fan bases or your videos on YouTube, your fan base is really, really supportive usually. And I think that has a lot to do with the product you put out and with just, the interactions you have with them. And I always see very supportive comments, and you have a pretty loyal, steady fan base, and it's interesting to see. Speaking of, you started on well, actually I discovered your music originally on YouTube, which I think many of the people that follow you have. Can you explain a little bit of your experience on YouTube and how it all came about?
Sure. I first put up some videos on YouTube a little bit to counterbalance my stage fright, because I was like, oh, I could make a video and put it online. That's way less scary than performing. And I had a friend at the time who had some nice recording stuff, like a microphone and a webcam. It wasn't state of the art by any means, but I was like, oh, I'll use that and put up one of my little songs and see what happens. And so it was just a video recorded again on a webcam in my room with the closet doors as the backdrop. And I put it up, and it surprisingly got a lot of views. Not a ton, not thousands or anything, but I was noticing people who weren't just my friends and family watching it through the power of the internet. However it is we find and stumble upon things online. And I continued to do this after thinking it was pretty fun and easy, a great way to share the stuff I was working on, again, without the terror and threat of performing live. So little by little, I got more and more of a following on YouTube. And then one lucky day in 2000, and I think late, like December 2008, I was featured on YouTube's homepage when they were still, I think, for free, putting people up on youtube.com as like, check this out. Now I think it's a lot more controlled and sort of sponsored and advertised. But one of my videos was on the landing page of youtube.com. I have no idea how it got there, if it was random, if someone recommended me. But from that, thousands of people then saw the video, and thousands of people subscribed. And I got a huge boost in followers and subscriptions. And a lot of the videos I posted right after that got a huge boost. And the albums I put out got incredible sales numbers through the following I had on YouTube. And then that's around the same time that I started touring. And I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what to expect when I went out into the world. But people came, and they weren't always big numbers, but they were people who said, like you, I saw you on YouTube, and it's cool that you're here. and I'm a fan. And that's when I had a day job, and I saw that I was making much money from online sales as I was at my job. And I thought, wow, I'm not the type of bold, gutsy person to quit my day job and pursue a life of art. But what if I got a part-time job and put more energy and effort into this music stuff? I wonder what would happen. And so I quit my job, fully intending to get a part-time job, but I never did. And I kept like saying no. Like I was interviewing and trying to find something, but I kept saying no to all the offers because I was like, I don't want to do this stuff. I just want to be making music and putting it on YouTube. And so it worked out. And now here we are like 7 years later, and I'm still making YouTube videos. And I really do still think it's the place that people find out about me because there's a lot of content. I have over 200 videos and 45,000 subscribers. So there's a lot of chances for people to run into something of mine on YouTube. But I've also concentrated more on becoming a great live performer. And my new album, The Terrible Dinner Guest, I stepped up the production level and tried to include some co-producers and work with new musicians. So I'm still on YouTube, and it's still very much kind of one of the legs of my table, of the Danielle Ate the Sandwich table. But I've really been also trying to focus and move forward to other stuff. And that's not necessarily because I don't like YouTube or I don't find a good release there. It's just really fun for me to focus on a lot of other things like live performance versus a video, and making music with other people aside from just myself in my bedroom. And so YouTube is still at the heart of it. But again, I'm just trying to take a bite out of every apple, honestly. There's a lot of apples out there, and I want to bite them all.
We'll get back to more of your new album, but I can definitely tell there has been development, at least in the business side of your ship, and which is important because it allows you to make good music, and it allows you to focus on that. There's definitely been a quality, not as far as the writing aspect, but the quality of your recording, the quality of your videos has all been kind of going up. And I think that's even propelling you even further, which I appreciate. I think it's really great. I'm interested in seeing how far this will all go.
Yeah, it's really cool to get to move forward. But I always like to think of where I started, and it was just like an innocent kid with a song she wanted to sing in front of whatever camera was available. And I remember when I first started looking at people who were a little more professional and polished and being really jealous of them and thinking like, I don't have the money to afford that nice stuff, or I don't know people who can record it and do a good job. So I always want to just kind of highlight that it's like so crucial and important for you as an artist to start anywhere you can, and you'll get there. Like you'll eventually get to a place where it feels right to spend a little more money on the production of a CD or to hire a videographer. So I don't know. I want to honor the poor little Danielle who started with a dream in a bedroom. But it is great. It is great to be, I'm growing up. I'm a grown woman, and I'm growing up, and I always want to kind of move forward and challenge myself. And it's cool to see that my music and my product is kind of coming along with me to grow up.
Okay, well, that concludes the first segment of our, general talk. We like to do a fun little thing when we have a guest on board. We play a game of some sort. And I was really racking my brain and trying to figure out something fun to do. And I came up with a little game called Know Your YouTube Channel Stats. And from what we were talking about earlier, it seems like you might kind of be on the ball here, but I'll ask a question and then give you a little buffer on the number which you can be correct in. So let's start with the very first question. When did your YouTube channel start? Month and date?
I think the start date is different from the date that I posted my first video. I'm going to guess November 2006.
Ooh. Not quite. The correct answer was April 12th, 2007.
Oh, yeah. Who knows? What was I doing November 2006?
I don't know. I got all these stats from I believe it's StatBlade, I believe.
Oh, wow. I've never heard of this website. And I'm a desperate woman who frequently Googles herself and her numbers. So you'll have to pass that along to me in an email. Okay, yeah,
Absolutely will.
that makes sense because I definitely didn't know that number by heart. So I trust your stats.
Along to the second question. How many subscribers do you have as of today?
Yeah, I just released a video 3 weeks ago with a famous YouTuber named Paint, John Cozart, and his appearance in my video got a lot of attention, and we boosted the number. I think I got like 3,000 subscribers in the last 3 weeks, and I want to say my number is 45,000. I'll just throw it out there, 287. 45,287.
That's very close, and I'll give it to you as a correct answer. It's 45,968.
Ooh, 968. See, that's good.
Yeah,
and that number grows steadily. And sometimes, like, I just released a music video for the Terrible Dinner Guest, and it shot up in numbers. But I'm lucky that it kind of always is growing steadily, thanks to the algorithm of the internet.
All right, question 3. How many videos have you put up?
I have put up, I think 210, maybe 211. I just put up another one yesterday. But I know some of those are private. Like some of them are just like videos that I share with my family. So I'm not sure how many you're able to see as the number, but I'm going to say 211.
You got that right on the nose.
Yeah.
It's exactly 211.
I'm a very concerned mother. I know where my children are at all times.
Okay, you have 2 more questions, and let's see. Question number 4. How many total views do you have on YouTube?
Oh, of combined views? I know, I just looked. Again, I'm a desperate woman who Googles herself often. It's over 7 million, but I do not know the exact number of total combined views.
Okay, it's actually 7,902,563 as of earlier today when I pulled that stat.
Yeah, those aren't bad numbers. How many of those are you and me, though, Vic? Do we make up a majority of those views?
Probably. I have, the click bot always clicking your videos. So, wow, I'm super impressed. I thought this was gonna go the other way, but you're right on top of it. Very last question. What is your most viewed video on YouTube?
I think, there's a 3-way. There's 3 options that I have in my head, but I think it's an original song called On the Planet Earth.
Oh, wow. For bonus points, do you know how many approximate views you have?
I would say over 500,000.
Wow, you're so on top of it. It is on planet Earth, and the number of views you have on it is 643,000.
That's good.
Views. That's a great count.
I'm very proud that I do have some covers online, but I'm really proud that my most viewed is an original song, because a lot of people on YouTube like sort of get famous and get exposure from covering other people's music. And I've always tried to highlight that I was an original artist. So I'm glad that kind of paid off for me to have that one, On the Planet Earth, be the one.
I believe that at least the top 2 were original, so I think you did a good job of making sure your original content got, good views there. And here's a bonus question / interesting information. Do you know what Scooby-Doo's full name is?
Oh, I don't. I'm going to guess Scooby Dooby Doo.
It's not. It's a good guess.
Ryan Scooby Doo. No.
Scooby Doo's full name is Scoobert Dubert.
No way. I love that.
Yeah.
SCOOBERT, or like, is it with a U?
Exactly.
Oh wow, Scoobert.
No, it's with double O. Yes, I learned that, 2 days ago. And I needed somewhere to send it out. I needed people to know. I needed people to know this.
I am honored that you tested that knowledge on me first. That's good. Scoobert Dubert.
Well,
I respect him a lot more now. You know, like he has such a heavy backstory now.
yeah, he has a
Did he come
formal name.
from stuffy Southern parents? You know, like was
You
his
know
father
what?
an English professor?
When I was reading up on it, I read that only his mother called him by that name, but I can swear that I've heard Shaggy call him Scoobert before. So I'm not sure exactly how much that's reliable, but he does have parents as well. So uh, I think it was very
I'd like a
interesting.
spinoff. I'd like to see a spinoff with them.
Well, that's the end of our Know Your YouTube Channel stats segment. And we're going to get right into talking about your brand new album, The Terrible Dinner Guest. You've had quite the year this year. You performed in the UK, West Coast tour, and an East Coast tour, and as well as local gigs. And now this album. Tell us a little bit more about how this album was different than previous albums.
Yeah, this album has to me felt like a long time. It's been in the works for a long time. I released an album last year, but it was the soundtrack to a documentary film where I was asked to write music specifically for this woman, a visual artist named Edith Lake Wilkinson. So that was my project for sort of the last 2 to 3 years. And all the while, I was building up this repertoire of songs that were more my own style, personal to my story, and not necessarily a reflection of Edith's life or written for that project. So I have all these songs from the last 3 to 4 years. Some are even older than that just didn't make the albums that I had released previously for whatever reason. So I had this big bushel of songs, and I was getting terrified with the pressure of like, what do I want to do for this album? This next one, where do I want to go? How do I want to record? The recording process is generally very stressful for me because it's a lot of pressure and a lot of money, and you're crunching it into as little time as you can. And then I kept thinking about my friend Sky Zentz, who is an artist, a singer-songwriter like me, and she released this awesome album in 2012 called Bird Heart. And as I got to know her and asked her about this project more, she told me that it was recorded by her friend who lived in the same town as her, Norfolk, Virginia, and it was produced and recorded by her and her friend Jackie Paolella. So here are these two women, Sky Zentz and Jackie Paolella. They live in Norfolk, Virginia. I kept coming back to them, like maybe Jackie could produce or could record this album for me and Sky could help me produce it, but it's far away. I live in Colorado and they're on the East Coast. How could I make that work? I'm not the type of person who can just afford to pick up and record out of the country or out of state. And I eventually couldn't think of anything else that I wanted to do besides this. So we kind of made plans, and Jackie was really excited about it. We didn't know what Sky's role in the album would be. And the more we got to talking, it was like, no, you definitely need to come on board as a producer for the album, because Sky, she's a singer-songwriter herself, but she has an amazing understanding of music and vocals, and she can like see the notes on the staff as they're going by. She's got an incredible brain. So we made all these plans. I finally got to Virginia in the first time we recorded was in February of 2016, and we worked for about 2 to 3 weeks. I had never met these musicians before. The first day we had a drummer, John DiGiorgio, come in, and he had heard the tracks. I hadn't heard his parts yet, and he lays down the first thing, and it was just incredible. And like the songs had already been escalated to a new place in the atmosphere of music. And so from there, we continued to work with other musicians that were set up and organized by Sky. She also kind of took on the music coordinator role for the album. And we recorded in February, and I came back for a couple more weeks in April, and we got all the tracks laid down and all the parts. And then we continued to produce and mix and master through the rest of the year until we released in September. So aside from going to a faraway place to work with new musicians and getting some of these songs that had been in my brain for the last 3 to 4 or 5 years, the songs feel a bit more sassy and a little more sure of themselves. I think I've always kind of been a folk songwriter who is insecure, and I usually see that as a strength. I wonder and I worry and I write about all my questions, and those make for great songs. And this album feels a little more like I'm making statements instead of asking questions. And I think again that has to do with me growing up a little bit and having a little bit more figured out. I still don't have it all figured out by any means. So the album, The Terrible Dinner Guest, is the name of it. It's definitely a step forward in all the ways, professionally, personally, musically, sonically, production-wise. And for me, it's like a breath of fresh air to be like, oh, I had an idea. I thought I knew what I was doing, and now seeing it realized and completed on a physical disc or a link where people can download it, it's like, oh, cool, I did it. I had something, I had an idea, I set my mind to it, and I accomplished it. So these albums that we musicians make are very big deals in a lot of ways. They're how we pay our bills, but they're kind of like a physical representation of the fires that burn within our hearts and chests. So it's great to see it alive and being well received by the fans. That was a long answer. Jeez.
No, that was great. That was a great answer. I by listening to it, since we've started this podcast, I've started to listen to music a little differently, a little more critically, to try to get a better understanding on what the songs represent. And I couldn't agree with you more. It does seem more, as you put it, a statement rather than a question. And I really, really enjoyed this album, and all the musicians you had work on the album. You know, they did a great job. The drummers definitely stuck out in my head when I was listening to it. Also, I think I told you this on Twitter a while ago, that any song with horns on it, chances are I'm going to like it. And you have quite a few songs with horns on, or a couple songs on this album.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it.
That's a cool thing too. I in the past, I've always kind of used a stand-up bass player and a violinist. Those were my main instruments. As far as accompaniment, and to not have them felt kind of like, oh man, am I going to fall on my face with this decision? Because they're my players and bandmates are so talented and so amazing. But again, I wanted to try something a little different and to incorporate the horns. I think it's so slick and fun and cool and kind of funky and soulful. It was really cool to work with. His name was Moffy, short for Timothy Reynolds, and he did it was kind of like stanky, you know what I mean? Like I'm thinking of his solos on The Terrible Dinner Guest and the song I have called Bad Habit, and he just like let her rip, and it's very cool. It's very cool to like play with musicians like that who just bring a new light to the songs.
I think all of you did a really good job. And this album was no different as far as the what I mentioned before. You definitely have lyrics that stand out and kind of just stick around, and just they stick around in my brain. And I'm just like, where did she come up with something like this? And I really enjoyed this album very much. So I think you guys did a really, really good job on it. I have another question that I like to ask people generally in any situation when it comes to talking about albums, more so when I'm talking to musicians. Do you have a favorite song on this album?
Yeah, it's hard for me to choose, but I would say the song Just Human. And it especially has to do with the recorded album version of it. This is one that it actually feels like a very strong folk woman song, like I could see like Melissa Etheridge or I don't know if Ani DeFranco would do it, but that feels like I'm flattering myself too much. But it's kind of like it's guitar and it's dark and it's deep and it's powerful. But that feels quite a bit different from what I've done before. I often play the ukulele, and a lot of the songs can be sort of light, and my vocals are very fluttery and ethereal. So Just Human has like deep drums and bass and guitar, and it feels very heavy, and it's lyrically strong as well as sonically strong. So listening to the recorded version of that again in the studio while we were making it, and now that it's done, if I happen to pop the album in my car and listen back and go, oh yeah, wow, this song is really cool, and it's very different from my previous songs, and it's one that really stands out as like, this song sounds really dope. And I'm proud that like I was one of the facilitators of making this a song that is in existence now.
Yeah,
Do you have a favorite from my new album?
I do actually. I have a few. I have a few that I really really gravitated towards. But if I were to pick one favorite, I have to go with The Universe.
Yes.
It was very profound. It made me really think, which is always a good thing, you know. And a musician can make you just really be pensive and think about not only the song but just what the idea is, you know, what the bigger picture is. And I really really enjoyed that one. I think my favorite lyric of the whole album, though, or favorite line, is the reoccurring line in the Terrible Dinner Guest. I've got soul. I got soul. I don't know where you came up with that. It's pretty simple but powerful.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
Yeah. The Terrible Dinner Guest is a really important song to me too, because it's kind of like my shy person's anthem. Again, I was sort of a wallflower, and I've since developed into a somewhat social human, but I still have moments where I'm just like, why am I being so shy? Or like, why can't I think of anything to add to this conversation? Or and I'm sure we've all been there. I write a lot of songs thinking that it's like my experience and I'm the only one who's going through this right now. And since I've released this song and the video, a lot of people have been like, I know what you mean. This is so me at my dinner party that I had last week, and I never know what to say. So it's cool that a lot of us are obviously awkward and weird in social situations and often don't know what to say. But yeah, the line, ooh, I've got soul, but you'd never know if you were stuck across the table from me, the terrible dinner guest. That's especially a line for the shy people who I love and trust. Shy people, I feel like, be so honored to include myself in the bunch. Been enough time to really show ourselves, especially in social situations where we're feeling sort of on high alert. And I think a lot of times we're breezed over as uninteresting or snotty or bratty, but we're just like, you know what I'm talking about, like people who just need a little more time and a little more coaxing to trust and open up. And I think oftentimes we're missing out on some of the most interesting people on the planet Earth when we breeze over shy people, because they've got a lot to say. And I know you've got soul, because I've got it too. And here's to giving shy people more time to prove that they've got soul.
You know what? That's right on the money. I think most of us have gone through something like that. You know, been in a situation where you don't know if you can quite be yourself. You can be vulnerable enough to be yourself. At least that's what I got from it. And you got to kind of like, you know, seek it out, see if, you know, this person is okay enough to accept you as that. And and I thought that was one of your stronger lines in the album. And you know, the whole album is really great. I don't know. I think that you definitely stepped up the production. It's different than before. Definitely have grown as a musician.
That's awesome to hear. And I appreciate it coming from you, since you've been a longtime fan. So you've seen a lot of the stuff, and you've been with me through a lot of the changes and growing up. So it's great to hear that you like the new step, because it is kind of scary to take what feels like a different approach and worry about how the fans who you've had for a while will accept it and handle it. And it's great to hear that you like it. Thank you, Vic.
I've been following your music for quite a bit, and I haven't been disappointed yet. So do you have anything else you want to say about the album with me?
I mean, I would love for everybody to give it a listen and listen to the songs. Yeah, I think they're really great to listen to. A lot of them are fun and pretty and poppy and easy to just kind of groove to, but they're still lyrically strong. So if you're the type of listener who likes to kind of listen to the words and, like you said, for the universe, sit and think about it, there's still a lot of opportunities to do that with this new album, The Terrible Dinner Guest. And I'm really proud of it, again, as a step forward, as an attempt to try something new. It feels like a success all around. And I hope all of you guys out there, artists or not, who are trying new things and brave new endeavors, that you are rewarded for your bravery and courage by having successful projects such as I had with this one.
Where can our audience find your album?
It's available to download. The album, The Terrible Dinner Guest by Danielle Ate the Sandwich, is available on most of the places where you download music: iTunes, Amazon, Bandcamp, Google Play. You can stream it on Spotify or create a Pandora channel. The best way to kind of find it is Google search it, or head to DanielleAteTheSandwich.com, where I've laid out all the different places you can find it to download. And I'm also sending physical copies in the mail if there are any of your listeners who like to receive it that way. The album comes with a full lyric insert and a digital download code, so you get the disc you can pop in your car as well as the download card to get it right onto your computer or device. And DanielleAteTheSandwich.com, again, is a great place to figure that all out.
Do you want to plug any of your social media?
Always. I'm most active on Facebook.com/Danielle Ate the Sandwich. That's my handle on most of the sites. On Twitter, I'm at Ate the Sandwich. Because of that 140 character limit. It busts my balls every day. But I'm also on Instagram and YouTube. Again, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel to see all those videos we've been talking about. And what are the other sites? I'm actually not on Snapchat. I think I'm like just getting too old for that. I'm sorry. I think it's like a fun app. I honor those who are on it, but I just haven't been able to. I'm too old lady. Those are it. Again, if you just Google search Danielle Ate the Sandwich, lots of options will pop up, or you can go to DanielleAteTheSandwich.com. And again, all those social sites are corralled into clickable icons for you on my website.
Find us at albumoftheweekpodcast.com. Also, we're making a switch over to YouTube, where we're going to be hosting all our podcasts on Twitter, AotW Podcast. Thank you very much for I really appreciate it, and I hope everyone goes out and buys your album and you make millions and millions of dollars off of it.
That'd be great. That'd be great. I hope for that too.
Thank you for listening, everyone. Be kind to each other.